The sun shines bright as it moves across my face. I feel the light and everything is in its place. Oh, I woke up feeling great. Today was made for me. And life is good the way it should, the way it was meant to be. And it's a beautiful day.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
And welcome everyone, Permits Fogcast, episode number 6 for the week of August the 12th, 2016. Glad to have you with us. Thanks very much for taking some time to tune in. Hope you had a super week and have kept up on all the big news that was surrounding A Billion Lives that had its North American premiere last weekend in Milwaukee and played this past Thursday in Oklahoma City. Be sure to visit billionlives.com, sign up for updates to receive dates and times that the film will be playing in your area. In this episode, we will wrap up our 3-part in-depth look into the situation down in Australia. Any of the Australian listeners that may be tuning in, make sure that you try and get to the first ever Save Vaping rally on Tuesday, August 16th at 12:30 p.m. That's this coming Tuesday on the steps of the Parliament House in Melbourne. That's number 1 Spring Street in Melbourne. Again, 12:30 p.m. Dr. Attila Danko, Donna Darville, Dr. Colin Mendelsohn will be there, and many more. It is your chance to get out, let your voice be heard, so take full advantage of this incredible opportunity. Okay, we'll have a full-blown Aussie Rules vaping episode this time around with part 2 of my interview with Dr. Attila Danko, and also an epic interview with the Vaping Bogan as well. So let's dive right into things now and see if we can get the Vaping Bogan on the phone.
Hello?
Well, g'day, mate. Throw another shrimp on the barbie.
Hello? Anyone there?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I have the wrong number. Is the Vaping Bogan there, please?
Huh?
This is Permit the Fog from Canada calling. I'm trying to get a hold of the Vaping Bogan, please.
It's that mongrel. He's trying to put me in the nut house. I've been able to handle him so far, but that plant that was moving and all them strange phone calls, he's trying to scare me out of Sid's house.
Ma'am, I'm very, very sorry. I think I might have honestly dialed the wrong number here. You don't know the Vaping Bogan? Does he live near you or something?
Yeah, and I know who the lout was. I'm not so bloody young either.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like we're speaking of the same person here. Vaping Bogan's a pretty well-respected guy. I thought,
How? You've seen him. You know how clever he is. God, he could talk me under the table.
Well, I honestly don't mean to pry, but is there any way you could tell me how I could get in touch with him?
I'll tell you when I'm good and ready. Don't you worry. You'll find out soon enough what I'm gonna do. In fact, you may find out sooner than you think. Never you mind. I'll keep in touch. And if you'll excuse me, I've got something very important to do.
Hey, calm down a little bit, please, ma'am. I'm just trying to get a hold of Vaping Bogan. Those kind of tones and threats, I don't know how your laws work down there, but I think you could essentially end up in court.
Listen, sonny boy, I've been to court more often than you've had hot breakfast. I know what happens, and I'm not going to let you get away with anything.
Okay, please, ma'am, calm down. There's no need to get this ramped up. Has he done something to you? I think you're carrying this a little bit too far.
Oh, no, I'm not. He's trying to get me out of this house.
Ma'am, I know it's, wintertime down there right now, but I'm thinking maybe you've had a little bit of a touch of the sun or something.
Touch of the sun, my eye. Oh, forget it. I might as well talk to me bloody self.
Ma'am, with all due respect, you seem very angry over this whole thing. I'm sorry to bother you tonight. Have you been sitting having a drink or two or something tonight?
I spent the night in a pub. Then I didn't know where to go. But I thought you could look after me because you are my parole officer.
Well, ma'am, I am very sorry for bothering you tonight. Maybe I'll just let you go. You should maybe go to sleep and sleep off this buzz you got going. But it's been a nice...
Oh, go and bite your back. You can't order me about. I'm a free woman.
Okay, well, if you got, these massive problems with Bogan, what about his wife? Have you tried talking to her?
She just told me to lay off the booze.
Well, ma'am, listen, I'm very, very sorry. I dialed the wrong number just trying to get a hold of Vaping Bogan. And all I wanted to do was to conduct an interview with him tonight.
Well, there you are then. If he says it's all right, it's all right. I mean, he'd know, wouldn't he?
Well, absolutely, ma'am. Thank you very much. And listen, I really have enjoyed talking to you. And it's been a pleasure. I'm very sorry for bothering you. And
You pinched my teeth, you lousy bitch! Now give them back!
Okay, ma'am, thank you very much for a great conversation. I'm very sorry to bother you. Have yourself a great night, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Millstream, where I first met you. You know, I haven't felt like this since VE Day.
This is Fresho 3. You're listening to the Fogcast. And gizzard stew is my favorite cock.
Hell yeah.
My grandfather's cock was too long for his pants, and it dragged several feet on the floor.
Over the last couple episodes, we've held our focus on the vaping dictatorship situation in Australia. And we're going to continue that focus with this episode as well. However, this is a bit of a special occasion, so I'm going to retitle this episode segment to Taking the O Out of the Country Show. Because joining me now is the voice of vaping from Australia, Sam Parsons, a.k.a. the Vaping Bloody Bogan. Welcome to the Fogcast, Sam. Can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your extremely busy life to chat.
How the fuck are you?
Not too bad, brother. Anyways, congratulations, buddy, on a stellar job on your YouTube channel. You've just uploaded your 400th video, 28,500 subs, 1.9, almost 2 million video views, and that's all contained in a 2-year period. Your anniversary coming up August 18th. Congratulations, man, and thanks very much for what you've done to bring a lot of entertainment and some great information to the community through YouTube.
Thank you very much, sir. Is it August? I thought it was September that I did my first video, but you've done your research, so that's cool. I did sooner than I thought. It was actually only funny today. I was thinking that I was like, fuck, it's 2 years nearly since I did the first fucking video. As really a bit of a laugh, and it kind of snowballed from there.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you entertain the hell out of your viewers with your Bogan style, yet you always include a solid, valuable message in each of your videos, a total package, in my opinion. And that's something that's always appealed to me. Your passion and determination is extremely obvious. And as a viewer and vaping enthusiast, once again, I thank you very much for all you do for the community and taking a little time out just to join us on the Fogcast and talk about what's going on down in Australia.
No worries at all. I appreciate the kind fucking words very much. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's really weird because I never set out to set up a YouTube channel or become a vape reviewer, insert quote and it just sort of happened. And then once it kind of got a bit of traction, I almost felt a responsibility to kind of keep it going. People enjoyed the videos, people were having a laugh. And so I kept doing them. And then I thought, well, I got to fucking do my bit. Advocacy became something that I felt as a person that, people watched, and I had a platform that I had to include. It'd be selfish of me to just talk about vape gear and not talk about the bigger picture.
Absolutely, and commend you for that. That's something that I think that all reviewers should take the responsibility to do, and especially in this time where the entire globe is suffering a drawback with their governments trying to squash out what we're doing. But, for those of us that follow you on social media platforms, that we realize how incredibly busy you are with your channel, your interaction on Facebook and other social media. You're dedicated to your job as well. And you also have a young family with a brand new baby girl being brought into the mix over the last month or so. And first off, a huge congratulations on your new bundle of unconditional love. And secondly, how do you manage to juggle such a packed schedule?
I'll be honest, it's not easy. It's not something that I probably haven't really talked about with my subscribers. Sometimes it's kind of fucking hard. I got a full-time job. Hopefully one day, maybe with various ventures that I suppose someone can get into once they get a bit of a following. You can start maybe getting some business things happening with vaping from your channel. I hope to do some merchandise and possibly, maybe a juice channel. And one day I can hopefully do less work and more YouTube. But yeah, it's hard. I try to get out 3 videos a week. I think for me is sort of my threshold. If I can get 3 videos out a week, I'm happy. And then that gives me enough sort of time in the evenings on the other nights to spend with the family. And then by day, I'm putting vape gear in boxes and sending them out to vapers.
Like I said, I certainly appreciate you taking the time out to discuss the situation over Australia. As listeners from the previous couple podcasts have learned to understand that it's pretty drastic over there. And I know that the listeners are going to be grateful to get your input as well. So I don't want to waste what little time you do have. So let's get right into it. I have been eagerly anticipating this interview, and not only to get the perspective from your part of the globe, but also because I've always admired your no-nonsense type of approach. You call a spade, you tell it like it is. We've seen you smash mods, and you're also not shy in giving manufacturers advice on how they can sexually relieve themselves. But it's also very apparent how passionate you are what's taken place with regulations around the world. Every video you post, like I mentioned, you talk about supporting the cause in the US, Australia, the UK, and other parts of the world. So let's just take a quick step back. How long have you been vaping, and when did you realize that the vaping scene in Australia was about to be flushed?
It's been interesting. It's sort of, in Australia, it's been more of a state-by-state type thing. And with a looming feeling that the federal government is going to do something at some point. So firstly, the Western Australian government went after an individual, just a lone online retailer, basically tried to say that he was selling tobacco products because vapes resembled cigarettes, in which they actually lost the first court situation. Then they appealed that and won that, and then he took that to, I suppose, the High Court and lost that again, and then he went to the Supreme Court, and basically, it took probably 2 years for that all to happen, and well over $100,000. He literally bankrupted himself going to court, and eventually lost that situation. So currently in that state, it's illegal to sell hardware from within the state. People can still buy it from interstate or overseas, but you cannot sell vape gear in Western Australia. And then Queensland, another state, which is sort of like our Florida, I suppose, down here, they went really hardcore and basically outlawed nicotine altogether. How enforced that is, I'm not 100% on, because people are still getting nicotine. But basically, yeah, you can't technically be in possession of nicotine, the way I understand it. I may be incorrect there, but I'm pretty sure that that's the way it is. And then now in Victoria, we've got 6 or so states and a couple of territories in Australia. They've basically proposed lumping vaping in with tobacco, which is really bad because it means people won't be able to vape in a vape store. They won't be able to try. They won't be able to advertise. All sorts of, really damaging legislation, which hasn't come to fruition yet. But there's been no consultation with the public or any health, authorities whatsoever. So it hasn't fully affected all Australians, but it's state by state happening and potentially a federal thing, looming.
Through talking with Paul and my research, I've found, the understanding that the policies and the laws regarding nicotine and vaping are being drawn up and passed behind closed doors with literally while the country sleeps. What's your thought process on the reasoning behind the approach that your government's taking on this?
It's pretty classic Australian government style. It's it's not. It's not surprising. It's extremely upsetting, but it's not surprising the way they've gone about it. It's pretty typical of them to basically take the nanny state type approach and just outlaw shit.
You touched on as well, the states and the territories differ in regards what's illegal and what isn't. But for most of the country, to purchase and sell nicotine is illegal, but it's legal to import for personal use.
Yeah, so for the way I understand it is that's a pre-existing law that dates back prior to vaping, even existing in Australia. It's to do with the Poisons Act because nicotine, obviously in extremely high concentrated form, is very much a poison. There's pre-existing laws that basically prevent the sale and supply of nicotine from within inside Australia. But you can still import it. So, for instance, I have a liter of nicotine and 100 milligrams sitting in my freezer right now, and that's completely legal. But if I was to sell it to anybody inside Australia, or even to sell it to someone outside Australia because I'm in Australia, that's illegal.
Right. And obviously contradicting that action, it is totally legal to purchase combustible nicotine in cigarette form, obviously, which, on the government's end is very contradictory. Being that Australia is a socialized healthcare system like it is in Canada, you would think the statistics are showing that it is a far safer alternative and they'd want their people healthier.
You would think they would take note of some of the health, information that's come out, especially from places like the UK with the Royal Institute of Physicians and the whole UK health system basically jumping aboard. But no, the Australian government, it's hard to work out whether they're just completely ignoring that or whether there are some underlying, under the surface, pharmaceutical and big tobacco type shit going on. I don't want to talk too much like, triangles and fucking conspiracy theories, but when you see information that contradicts completely what they're saying, it makes you wonder as to what the fuck they're doing.
So essentially in Australia, you cannot buy or sell nicotine. You're forced to import for personal use, and if you're not completely educated on good nicotines and bad nicotines, you're risking a contaminated product. But you can purchase nicotine in a combustible tobacco form. It seems to me like they're going out of their way to make vaping more inconvenient smoking despite the cost.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be what the government wants to do. They seem to be happy with these inadequate avenues of nicotine delivery being the only option for smokers. And to me, that seems like they really just want people to keep smoking.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, well, let's paint a quick picture with some fast statistics. You got approximately 15,000 Australians die each year from smoking. It costs the Australian government, ultimately the taxpayers, approximately $31.5 billion in social, including health and economic costs. In 2015, Australians spent approximately $3.2 billion on cigarettes. And since March 2014, there have been 3 of 4 12.5% excise increases, with the fourth taking place on September 1st this coming year in 2016. This will essentially bring the average cost of a cigarette up to about $1.20 per cigarette, or $24 for a 20-pack, roughly.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. To put it bluntly, it's pretty fucked up considering that, at the moment, even before this next hike in prices, you're paying, roughly $1 a cigarette, and as you say, more than $1 pretty soon per cigarette. The average person, the average smoker is probably smoking, at least half a pack to a pack a day, and I would say the average smoker is getting pretty close to a pack a day. That's a lot of money every week for a smoker to be dishing out.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got a statistic of approximately 15% of the population smokes on a daily basis. So from the quick math, let's go with your total population, but we're going to go with 18 million Australians approximately that are 14 and up, with which approximately 15% smoke on a daily basis. Now, out of those 15%, 3.5% to 5% have switched to vaping, bringing it to roughly about 100 to 125,000 vapors in Australia. And those numbers doubled from 2013 to 14 and 14 to 15, etc. But with the recent scare tactics by the government, the numbers have been slowly dwindling. Now, the reason that I pumped these numbers out was to show that there's still a load of smokers out there that are being brainwashed into believing that vaping is something bad. And so what do you do, and how do you encourage Australian vapors to get out and properly educate?
It's really hard because the government has been really effective with this. Like, there's just been so many bullshit and completely unfounded articles, and you see them popping up on Facebook feeds all the time. Oh, vaping, it's worse than smoking, and it's going to affect children, and nicotine, like, what is it really doing, and all this sort of crap. And you're just like, have you not seen the real articles that show that, if you speak to any GP, if you speak to any, non affiliated, GP, and by that I mean, someone that's in the pocket of pharmaceutical or whatever, they will tell you that nicotine in its pure form, in a vapor or in a patch or in whatever, is about as bad as caffeine for you. You're not telling coffee drinkers to stop fucking drinking coffee, are you? But you're scaring smokers into putting 3,000 chemicals into their body instead of one.
Yeah, exactly. And, I asked Paul last week, or the last episode, this same question. For decades, the UK, Canada, and Australia have been proven to be the world leaders in harm reduction, not necessarily just tobacco, but in harm reduction, period, based on our socialized healthcare. And the UK has taken a progressive stance on vaping. Canada is in that same movement as well. We're looking to create vaping's own regulatory framework, which it should be, and not just lumping it together with tobacco. But both countries are realizing that vaping is not a tobacco product and shouldn't be regulated as such. Why is Australia not following suit, in your opinion?
It's extremely frustrating. I don't know for sure. The only reason, and that's what's so like extremely, I can't find the words as to how fucking pissed off vapors are when they see their government basically ignoring, not just independent studies, but an entire health industry in the UK basically saying this is going to save not just a few lives, but millions of lives. And they just ignore that. They just ignore that and say, you know what? Nah, actually, we think it might be damaging. We're worried about children starting to take up vaping. We're worried about non-smokers vaping. And you just feel like saying, fuck that. Okay, even if 10 non-smokers took up vaping, don't you think it's worth saving, literally hundreds of thousands of smokers' lives by getting them onto something that actually effectively works. Instead, you want us to try and use patches and sprays and gums, which just don't work. And you've tried this for, decades. You've tried using, extremely expensive prices, taxes to increase the price of cigarettes. And you want to ignore something, and come up with all of these phony, unproven, ideas that, vaping is going to do this and it's going to do that and it's going to, and you're ignoring the actual evidence. And the only reason you can look at is either they're too lazy to properly investigate it and look at the evidence and actually make an educated decision on it. Instead, they choose to go, it's too hard to actually investigate and make a proper, educated decision on. Or there's something more, evil. There's something more,
Sinister.
dark, sinister underneath there, whereby you are throwing smokers under the bus at the expense and the profit of big tobacco and pharmaceutical. You're worried that you're going to lose the taxes from cigarettes. You're worried that you're going to lose the revenue from medical treatment on smoking-related diseases, and you're worried that there's going to be some sort of actual effective way to quit smoking, and suddenly you're not going to have this income.
Well, not just it. I mean, my opinion is, big tobacco has had their moment. They've been at it for centuries. They've made their money, but the governments could honestly make, close to, they wouldn't be losing a whole lot if they regulated it properly, taxed it properly, and encouraged their public, because they're going to be saving money in the healthcare end of things, and it's going to balance out for them, and then they're going to have a great stance as how the world looks at them. They're doing something.
Is that they can save so much money on smoking-related diseases and the treatment and all the medical stuff that goes along with that, and even if they just put in like a standard tax, like a basic GST tax, which they put on everything, 10%, which we could all live with. If we're paying fucking $3 on top of our $30 RDA, we can all live with that. But instead, they don't want to take that actual, proper step into regulating it effectively and putting proper legislation in, and saving themselves some money in the treatment of smoking-related diseases. They just, it's really disgusting.
You guys recently had the Billion Lives premiere down in Australia. It was a big success. A lot of awards were won for the film down there. Do you think that it had any impact whatsoever from a citizen standpoint, their view on what the governments are doing?
I would like to think so. Based on what I've seen with the Victorian government so far, no. There's probably... The thing with Australia is I've seen a number of politicians say, oh, that's really good. We really, we like what we see here. This is fantastic. But party lines come back into it. Even if, a number of MPs and whatever see these, documentaries, and they see this research and they see what it can actually do, the overruling agenda of the party will override basically any individual thought that they have on it. And we can see that with gay marriage, for example. We've got so many politicians that are all for it, pro-gay marriage, absolutely, let's get LGBT, gay rights. But instead, their party lines and what the party says they have to vote for prohibits and stops them from, basically passing the legislation. And I can see that, that's going to be the same problem with vaping. You've got to get enough political support, but also, you've got to get the public. You've got to get all of the public. The only way the Australian government really listens to what happens is when you get enough of the public standing up.
Exactly. It boils down to what is being said over and over and over. It is entirely up to the public. It's up to the vaping community to not only educate the smokers, because I'm going to be honest with, I've been trying to do my research to conduct proper interviews with both, you and Paul, and I've got Dr. Attila Danko as well, which I'm really looking forward to. But it's very difficult to find information about the truth about vaping down in Australia. Anything that I've been able to find out on the internet is all that, like you mentioned, the propaganda, the anti-vaping propaganda, protecting the kids, and the same that other countries don't follow suit with that. I mean, with the situation in Poland right now, I was able to dig up a wealth of information, both good and bad, and you can make a proper assessment of what's going on, where it seems like you guys, Paul touched on that as well, like a media type blackout that's going on down there that prohibits the truth from being exposed, and it's unfortunate. And so do you foresee the Australian government ever changing their view? Do you think that this would put pressure on the Australian government to really rethink their strategy?
I do. I'm really actually quite excited about seeing what New Zealand has done, because I think being such a close neighbour geographically, but also, in terms of policies and stuff like that, I think that will have a powerful impact. Hopefully, I'm hopeful. As I said, I don't know for sure, but I think it should have an impact. But like you say, the propaganda is strong, and I'll be out in public, I'll be having a vape somewhere near smokers, and you'll meet smokers that actually think that vaping is worse than smoking. And you look at them like they've got a mental disorder. You're like, how the fuck can you think that? Based on all of the research that we've seen in other countries, based on the very simple scientific fact that there is only essentially one major chemical in there. There are a bunch of innate ingredients, PG, VG, and some food grade flavorings in there. How can you possibly think that not burning something and inhaling the vapor is worse than burning something? It's a carcinogen. You take flame, you inhale the smoke. How is that going to be better than a vapor? It's fucking ridiculous. And it's really concerning to how the Australian public just soaks up propaganda.
Exactly. Well, I think, just throughout history, we're led to believe that our governments know what's best. And there's still a lot of people out there that don't interact on the internet. They don't get, they don't dig and research that, if they are on the internet, they'd rather sit and play their Candy Crush and things of that nature and not do proper research. So they're getting fed this crap through the government, and that's what they're led to believe. And it's like you said, I've been in the same situation. I actually totally get off on the opportunity to educate any opportunity I get. Like you said, you get out with a group of smokers, and within 5 minutes is all it takes is just to educate them, and it gives them that little leeway to, hey, maybe this is something I should look into, sort of thing. Or maybe this guy has something, he's onto something, or whatever. It takes a little effort of education to, it's like with my mother even. I went out for lunch one day and she popped it on me about how I'm going to get popcorn lung from vaping. And it only took me a couple minutes to explain that the diacetyl in the worst case scenario is about 9 micrograms of diacetyl in a 30 ml bottle of the worst case scenario juice, whereas one cigarette will hold somewhere in the vicinity of 6,700 micrograms of that same compound. And it's so, education is so extremely important from the community, because the public is not going to get fed the truth from any other source.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a simple thing. You could be at the pub and you're having a beer and you're having a vape out in the beer garden, and someone's like, oh, what's that? Oh, I heard it's really bad for you. And you explain to them, you say, look, what is in this liquid is the same flavorings that you have in your lollies, in your ice cream, in your cordial at home that you feed to your kids. The propylene glycol is in asthma puffers. It's in the nicotine spray that you've tried to quit with. And the VG, is in everything. It's used as a thickener. You explain the ingredients to them, they go, oh, oh, okay. And you tell them, look, it's not burning anything. And suddenly they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. It's so simple when you explain the truth. We did get one really decent documentary just pop up on a TV station recently that was actually very, very positive, but also at the same time very objective. And it was a UK-based documentary that took took 3 or 4 groups of smokers, 8 in each group. They had 8 people trying to quit via cold turkey, which we all know is bullshit. We had 8 people trying to quit with traditional nicotine replacement therapy like patches and gum and sprays. And we had 8 people, using vaporizers. And, they did a whole bunch. They had scientists involved, and they did proper tests, and they took them over, I think it was a month or 2 months, and they tested them, at various periods on their, lung recovery, on their ability to absorb oxygen, on all sorts of very scientific, proper fucking testing. And, it came out that the only, it was, the same amount of, basically the same amount of people were able to quit via vaporizers as they were traditional nicotine replacement. I think something like 7 out of the 8 people managed to stay off cigarettes for the whole month. The cold turkey, candidates failed miserably. Something like 3 or 2 of them stayed off cigarettes for the month. The rest of them all cracked. And the only thing that came out of the study that they wanted to investigate further with some bigger pools, they had a very small pool obviously, was that vaping, the vapors, their recovery of the cells in their lungs wasn't as quick as those that didn't vape while quitting, which makes sense. Do you know what I mean? You're taking something into your lungs, there's going to be some sort of impact. Right. How much that impact was absolutely minimal and negligible. It certainly wasn't, from what the scientists perceived as, a problem. It was something they wanted to investigate further. So it was a really, really good documentary that portrayed vaping as, hey, we know that it's not going to be 100% healthy. Putting anything in your lungs on a regular basis is not going to be healthy. That's common sense. But versus putting cigarette smoke in your lungs, 95% safer is what, they sort of came out with from their own small study, which just mimicked what the Royal College of Physicians had said. So we've had one good documentary. Unfortunately, it wasn't on a real mainstream TV channel. It was on, it's not a community channel, but it's not your Fox or your CBS or whatever. It was a slightly smaller sort of channel, but it's a bit of hope.
That's hilarious because that's the exact same documentary I was talking about.
Oh, yeah?
So I'm just going to omit my shit out of the interview and just carry on with yours because it was the exact same thing. It was just sounded funny. I was sitting there smiling because I'm talking about this documentary, and then you go, yeah, well, we just had one here, and it was blah, blah, blah. I was like, holy fuck, it's the same one. It wasn't great.
I was watching it, and I'm like, finally, there is some actual common sense in this debate. It was objective. There were some negatives they found, but they weren't negatives that I felt meant that you shouldn't go ahead and basically promote vaping. It was, we're concerned. We don't know enough about it yet. It needs to be studied further, but we should be embracing this.
Exactly. But I mean, just for future reference, anybody that may ask you, they can check it out on YouTube. It's just search Michael Mosley e-cigarette and it'll come up. It's the exact same documentary. Over the last week, there was some activity with the vaping community and the government. I noticed that Dr. Attila Danko had met with MP Fiona Patten at Parliament House. To me, I've said this before, to me, Dr. Danko in Australia would probably be the equivalent of Greg Conley in the US. He's just every day, all day advocating vaping, and that's coming from a general practitioner as well. But did you hear about that meeting, and do you know what took place?
No, I haven't heard about that meeting as such. I did hear whispers that there was a meeting, and was quite excited by the idea of an actual government official meeting with someone with the insight of Dr. Danko.
Right. Well, I think maybe what that led up to is there will be a Save Vaping rally Tuesday 16th, 12:30 p.m. on the Parliament House steps. That is located at number 1 Spring Street in Melbourne, Australia. That's a good step in the right direction. That's the people, like you said earlier, it just needs to be some interaction between the public and the government, and this is a great step.
The government needs to know that there are actually people out there and voters, and you got to remember in Australia that everybody generally, if they've enrolled to vote, has to fucking get in there and vote. So, everybody that turns up to that rally, effectively is a voter, and that generally, it has an impact on what the government, does. If it's in their electorate and there are people that are saying, hey, this is an issue that I care about, that I want you to support, if you get enough people doing that, that will have an impact.
And that's pretty much where I wanted to go with this entire interview and get across, was the fact that nothing is going to change. It's kind of like sitting in front of a wood stove waiting for heat. Well, there isn't going to be any heat until you put some wood on that fire. And I knew that you would be the guy to try to help me get this point across. It's very, very important for the vaping public. I hope that we get a lot of Australians listening to this series that we're putting across and get more involved, because words do speak very loud. We can get a point across and get the government realizing that we mean business.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened in the States. You've had a number of, representatives in, the various different states actually be removed from their office because enough vapors said, hey, we vape, we vote, and if you don't support it, we're not vaping for you. And they, and that's a powerful thing. It's unfortunate that because of these pre-existing nicotine laws, the vaping community in Australia has been stifled. We don't have the same number of vapors in our, various electorates to have as much of an impact as what the Americans can, because they've got so many more people that are vaping. When they say, hey, if you don't fucking, support this, we're not going to vote you in. It actually has a real impact. In Australia, we're on the back foot. We're the underdog because we have a far less amount of vapors, in terms of the, population proportionate to get in there and actually make a difference. So we really need everybody who has, who vapes to get in there, but also anybody who has family members that want, their smoking family members not to be smoking, to get in there and say, hey, this is something that's life-changing. I want to see the smokers around me have the opportunity to access this product.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, going back, the U.S. is the largest market in the vape community with a roughly close to 50%. But second place would be the UK, and they're sitting roughly around 13%. That's quite a space, quite a gap. But in that small percentage, there was enough of those people that did make an influence on the UK backing out of the European Union. Based on, I mean, there's a lot at stake with that situation with the Brexit vote. Their British pound, there was just a lot of political, but vaping was part of it, and the vape community stood up and made that slight difference. It was like a 52 to 48 vote, and I believe firmly that what put it over the edge was the vaping public standing up and speaking their mind.
Absolutely. You're talking about a 4% difference in votes. You're talking about, I mean, how many there's several million vapors in the UK, and there was a difference in votes of several million. That has to be an impact. Absolutely. You cannot say that that didn't have an impact on that decision. It might be why people were so surprised by that decision, because they weren't expecting the vapors to come out and say, you know what, fuck Europe, we don't want this bullshit, we don't want to be part of this TPD crap. I don't care if economically it's going to be a challenge for the UK in the next couple of years, which it will be. This pro-vaping movement is more important than the overall economic situation of the UK. I absolutely think that the vapors had an impact there.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's going to be a long, drawn-out process for us as a community, but in order for those of us that have always taken a passion in creating and keeping that path paved for the people that are still smoking, because we all know let's face it, we all are okay. We can continue to vape no matter what happens. However, it's that poor guy next door that's still hooked on the cigarettes that can barely get up the steps that we're worried about. There's places in the world that are starting to see the light, and New Zealand's a prime example. They're taking a different stance and a different light, and I think that there's some hope for us as a community, as a global community down the road, and it's something that we can be hopeful for, but we have to do our work. And so with all that's taking place, and it does seem grim at times, but there's a lot of progress and there's a lot of hope. What words of encouragement and advice could you give to vapors all over the world?
I think it's pretty simple. What have you got to lose by doing something? A bit of your time, $5 from your wallet. If you sit back and do nothing and you blow clouds and you post hand checks, instead of actually taking a few minutes just to write your representative, support a few advocacy groups, whether it be CASAR or Not Blowing Smoke, or the New Nicotine Alliance, or the various advocacy groups in the UK, you really are not losing much by doing something, but you are running the risk of losing everything and preventing those that haven't had the opportunity to move into vaping. You're running the risk of losing all of that by doing nothing. It doesn't make sense to me to sit back and do nothing when it's so minimal what we need to do individually to actually make the collective difference. So just send an email, pledge $1, and talk to a smoker, talk to a non-smoker, and tell them why you think they need to be supporting government officials that support vaping. Doing nothing is easy, but doing something is not very hard at all. Just get off your fucking ass.
Incredibly well said, buddy. That's great. Well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough once again for a guy I've admired and respected. To actually sit down one-on-one and chat with you like this has been a highlight for me, definitely, and I know that the listeners are going to get something out of it. Thank you very much for bringing some light on the situation over there and your stance, and let's do what we can to continue to help out, because it's a global community. It's not just what happens in our backyard. We're out there for each other, and that's the purpose of why I'm reaching out to guys like yourself.
Thanks for having me on. And it's such a great community. We're globally we can get together and help each other re-wick our RDAs and build the perfect coil. Why can't we use that sense of community to save our community?
An incredible interview with an incredible man, great representative for the global vaping community. A lot of fun to watch. Check out his channel, The Vaping Bogan, on YouTube. Also, you can catch him on Facebook and on Instagram as well, Twitter, all the social media platforms. Great guy. Had a blast with that interview, and we've somewhat kept in touch over the last week or so as well. Just a great guy and a fantastic spokesman and representative for our community. Great advocate. And thanks very much, Sam. Really appreciate the time you took, and hope to have you back again on the Fogcast again sometime soon. So if you want to get yourself decked out and start some conversations, check out vapingswag.com. Shane over there makes some fantastic t-shirts. He's got reviewer t-shirts, Adore e-liquid apparel, I Vape, I Vote shirts, Vaping Swag Originals, and he's got Wire by Crazy Wire, and also a new juice line as well that you'd want to check out. Go support Shane. He does a lot for advocacy behind the scenes, puts a lot of his sales into the advocacy as well. Got to check him out, vapingswag.com. And while you're at it, pick yourself up some Addie's yogurt or some banana bondage from adoreeliquid.com. 50% of the banana bondage goes to notblowingsmoke.org, and 100% of the Addie's yogurt concentrates goes to Not Blowing Smoke as well. Great cause, great prices, great juice, and you simply won't be sorry that you did. Advocacy never tasted so good. So if you listened to the last episode of the Fogcast, you heard part one of an in-depth, great interview with Dr. Attila Danko. And just a reminder, once again, coming up on August the 16th, that's this coming Tuesday, on the steps of the Parliament House in Melbourne, Australia, number 1 Spring Street, Melbourne, Australia, there will be the very first ever Save Vaping rally. Dr. Attila Danko will be there, Donna Darville, Dr. Colin Mendelsohn, and several others. Get out there, support the cause, let the government know what the vaping community means to you, and it's your opportunity to get out and speak your voice. So take full advantage of it if you're able. Again, that's on August the 16th, this coming Tuesday afternoon, 12:30 p.m., the steps of the Parliament House in Melbourne. Please get out there and support the cause. It's very important. You guys saw what took place in New Zealand, and we can get the ball rolling in Australia with the rugged nicotine laws that are taking place down there as well. Coming up now, part 2 of that epic episode with Dr. Attila Danko, and I hope you enjoy it.
Good afternoon, fellow minions. Welcome to Yeti Wire. How can I help you?
Yeah, hi. We're here to see Mr. Yeti. We want to talk to him about some coils.
Yeah, we want to meet him. Well, no problem, gentlemen. I'll page him for you. Mr. Yeti to customer service, please. Mr. Yeti to customer service.
Holy shit!
If you're looking for the ultimate vape experience, look no further. Introducing Yeti Wire. Beautiful handcrafted coils that will perfect any atomizer. Currently available in staggered fused Clopton, Alien, Caterpillar Botanic Track, stainless steel fused and twisted coils. Unbelievable pricing starting at just $5 per set. And always remember to befriend a Yeti, hug a Yeti, and buy from a Yeti at Yeti Wire. YetiWire.vapeshack.org.
Glorify your goon with Yeti Wire.
You know, so look, everything that we do counts. Every little bit that comes along that is in favour of vaping, you know, makes a difference. It is a long battle. It's an erosion battle. We've got to erode that opposition to it, bit by bit, person by person, and we'll get there in the end. And you know, I do see things changing in Australia slowly but surely. See things changing around the world. You know, so I'm as I said, I'm optimistic. I wouldn't be in this if I didn't think we could win this, and I believe we can.
Yeah, and just one more touch on the Royal College of Physicians. I mean, people that just don't want to take the time to try to wrap their head around that report. I think a good reference on a layman's terms is, you posted it the other day on your Facebook, was the BBC documentary by Michael Mosley. It gives you a pretty good idea of, let's face it, anything we're putting into our lungs isn't going to be 100% safe, but when they compare it to the cigarettes, it's a huge difference. And I thought that was a fantastic documentary, and I do encourage it. It is posted on YouTube, and you can look it up. It's just called Michael Mosley E-Cigarette. It's a BBC documentary. 50 minutes, I think I posted it on Facebook a couple weeks back too. I watched it and I just said, grab a vape and sit and watch this. And you get a good idea of what the Royal College of Physicians is talking about.
Yeah, and it was broadcast in Australia just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so I mean, that's another thing that's come out, you know, so people would have been watching that and thinking, oh, so maybe this vaping thing isn't all bad. You know, maybe it is a good thing.
Not just the Royal College of Physicians, but, you know, there's more and more positive media and documentary type information coming out. Billion Lives is huge. That's another thing I actually kind of wanted to touch on really quick with you. That Billion Lives did premiere in Australia as well, won some awards, seemed to go over very well. Do you think that it has started to snowball any kind of effect as far as the mindset down there?
Yeah, probably not so much in Australia. The premiere in New Zealand was much bigger. I mean, it was international first premiere.
That was the first one, yeah.
I've been lucky enough, one of the few, to see it twice now.
Mm-hmm.
But in Melbourne at this film festival, it was in a little hall with sort of metal chairs on a flat floor. The sound quality sort of went a bit stuffed and halfway through. It was pretty much everyone was there was a vapor at the showing. We invited lots of politicians, but no one turned up. So I think the main thing about the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival was that so they can go out to other places and say, hey, look, we won an award, you know. So that was the main benefit of that, really, in terms of stimulating discussion in Australia. It's really the Michael Mosley documentary would have been far more effective because that went on broadcast TV on a standard channel and would have been watched by, I imagine, hundreds of thousands. Whereas the Billion Lives, it was just about 40 or 50 vapors really saw that.
An exclusive group. Well, I think once it gets through the proper channels, I mean, it starts, and once it goes through its circuit and then starts getting into theaters and then onto Netflix or whatever, it's going to make a bigger impact, I think. I'm really looking forward to it as well. I heard it was very well done. I think Aaron Biebert really he's a smart guy and he hit it on the head and he just took a stance and said, I'm not afraid to get this out there, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's a brilliant movie. And I think the effectiveness in America is going to be huge because they're creating this huge event there for it. I mean, part of this is because vaping advocacy has been so much bigger in the US and it's been so much more open. And we've been really hampered by the fact that, people think about vaping advocacy and they think, oh, geez, it's treated the same as heroin. You know, I don't want to be arrested for vaping. I don't want to be sent to jail, you know. And so people vape privately and in secret and keep it to themselves, you know, don't tell other people about it. And, that was the big argument on the forums a few years ago when we were trying to create a advocacy group unsuccessfully, like I was talking about, is that so many people were saying, don't poke the bear. You know, we've got a good thing going. Let's keep it secret. Let's keep it quiet. Don't you dare stuff this up for the rest of us because what they don't know won't hurt them. They won't stamp us out if they don't know we're doing it. And, of course, it was bullshit. They knew that we were doing it. They knew that we're getting nicotine in and that vaping was taking off in Australia. And all that did was it gave them an open road to government, an open road to politics to be able to spout whatever crap that they liked without any opposition. And so that was the whole effect of this whole, don't poke the bear, I'm scared. You know, doing stuff just because of fear is never a winning strategy. You know, having the courage to stand up and get out there, that's much more likely to make you win. There's no way you can win if you just huddle in your lounge room and keep it quiet and secret. That was what we were faced with. We were faced mainly by opposition from other vapors. But once I'd done my speech, then I knew that I had the credibility to start something here in Australia and that no one could question that. no one could question that I had the right to lead this group and to start something. If they, have problems with it, well, once you get a speech out in the international, forum and you get a standing ovation, then you can talk about it, Until then, we who are wanting to be active, we who are wanting to push the agenda, just let us get on with it and join us. Yeah, so that's where in America, because you've got, Senator Ron Johnson, you've got all these people coming along and, they're having, I think they're going to stretch it out so there's going to be stuff on the day before and the day after, meetings and discussions and vape celebrations. It's got the chance to be a really, really huge landmark event in vaping history in the US.
Yeah, and that's there's a number of court cases that are coming up, but the main one, the big one, the right to be smoke free lawsuit has been moved right to October 19th, I believe. So that surprised me that that's going to happen that quick. So that just shows the intensity behind it. Let's face it, the American market holds probably about a 43 to 45% sharehold in the overall vaping market. I think the UK is in number 2 with around 13%, which is a huge gap, but there should be the US could they should set the precedence with what's going to be taking place. Like you said, it's going to be a long, drawn out process. There'll be a lot of how the judicial system works in most parts of the world. It's not going to be just an overnight thing that's fixed, but at least they're moving in the right direction. And they, like you said, Ron Johnson, several others that are standing behind it, that's going to help that movement a little bit, move at a better pace as well.
Yeah, look, I try and keep up with what's happening in the US, but I just can't see how they can squash it. There are just so many people who are vapors now. There are so many people who know how to build their own coils, people there who are stockpiling nicotine as well. But they're trying to squash this thing. I just think they've taken a bite too big, the FDA. Look, obviously you've got to be prepared for, if things go all pear-shaped, there are multi-billion-dollar vested interests there that are fighting against vaping, as we know.
Exactly.
But there's going to be a hell of a fight against them. All these lawsuits and actions by the grassroots advocates. I think whatever people can do there to get behind that and to promote the liberalisation and then continued access to vaping, it'll be very interesting to see what pans out there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sir, you've been very gracious and generous with your time. I don't want to keep you too much longer. Just a quick note, with all that's taking place all over the globe, and as grim as it can seem in some situations, what words of encouragement and advice could you give to vapors worldwide?
Well, just that every time that there's been a debate like this, in harm reduction, in general, the people who are in favour of sensible regulation, that we've won. There were places where condoms were banned. There were places where, places in the world where, they're decriminalising other drugs, like Portugal, and they're seeing the benefits of it. That the harm reduction argument is gaining strength all over the world, and and it just takes that one-on-one discussion with someone that could make the difference, and that's what they did in the UK. They just talked one-on-one with politicians, with public health people, and they changed it all around so that now the UK is a beacon of light to the world in terms of tobacco harm reduction. And we can do, and they're doing that in New Zealand. They've won there. We can do that in every country. It just takes people to convert your fellow smokers, get them onto vaping, to look for opportunities to talk to your representatives, look for opportunities to talk to people in public health, So much of this is simple ignorance and misconception, and if you wipe that away, this is a historical, movement that we're part of. It's extremely exciting to be part of, and when you're in your old age, you can look back to this time and say, look, I was part of this. I was part of that. The movement to save 1 billion lives.
Well, Dr. Danko, thank you very much once again for taking the time to sit and chat. When I started this whole Fogcast, the podcast, my intent was just to get a message out, and it was the means of the technology that was important to me. It's hard. I find people find it tough to sit behind their computer for an hour and a half or whatever and watch an advocacy video. But there's a lot more movement in a podcast, and they can listen to it in their cars on the way to and from places or work or whatever, on their bikes, on walks, whatever. And so I thank you very much in helping me take that step. I think that your message is going to be very inspiring to a lot of people, and it's definitely going to shed some light on what's happening outside of people's backyards, which is something that is, in the States, they're glued onto what's happening there. It's a big issue, but we've got to do what we can to help others worldwide. And you've taken the stand. And if you want to check out that epic speech that Dr. Attila Danko gave, I'll leave a link to that YouTube video in the description. Do check it out. It was a classic speech, and he was one of the first that I saw that had the balls to stand up and just say it like it was. So congratulations on that, and congratulations on the vape rally coming up Tuesday, August 16th, 12:30 p.m., Parliament House Steps, 1 Spring Street, Melbourne, Australia. Do check that out. Do what you can to get down to that area and help with the movement. So thanks very much for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome. There's just one more thing.
Sure.
So I'm in discussions at the moment with Stefan Didak, with Luke Van Deel, and a few other advocates, global international advocates, Dave Dawn, about a demonstration at the World Health Organization COP7 event in New Delhi later this year.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
Yeah, actually, that show that I was on with you, Fresh, and Stefan, you guys touched on that briefly then.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, look, there's still a bit of organisation to do with that. We've only had a couple of meetings so far, but, potentially that could be huge. But we're going to need to get a lot more support for that to make that happen. I would really like there to be 100 international advocates in New Delhi. Right. I mean, this could be potentially a bit more scary than most other protests.
I was just going to say, who's going to hire the security team?
With great risk comes great reward.
Oh, for sure.
I think there's such a huge opportunity there, because that's if you like, that's the core of the empire. That's the Death Star. That's what we got to get to.
Absolutely.
The rest of it's peripheral. That the World Health Organization is the one that's driving this prohibitionist agenda. Mm-hmm. And every government in the world who's banning vape will be basically referring to the World Health Organization and their attitudes towards it. So until we start to make some noise about that, until we start to confront the emperor himself, we're going to keep getting that poison coming out from there. So, I'm excited, really excited about this, more excited than anything else, if we can get it together. A lot of courage, a lot of guts, a lot of financing. I believe we can do it.
The community, that's the greatest part about this community. You can reach out to somebody, hop on a video call, and learn how to make a coil. And you can also reach out like we are right now. I can reach out to you and get some input on what's happening in a certain part of the world. And that's what's great about this community. I think in our back of our minds, I've always maintained and told people in the back of our minds, we have this gratitude for the fact that we were able to walk away from the tobacco entrapment, and we all share that common bond, and we're willing to do what we can for each other. Sure, there's some division on whether you're a cloud chaser or a flavor chaser or a mouth to lung or whatever the case, but we are all one, and that's something that we need to do together is to stay together as one. And for events like this, get out there if you can. I would love to be able to take it up, have the opportunity to take part in something like that. Yeah, I might have to run like crazy at some point, but it would be a worthwhile cause for sure.
Yeah. So there's going to be a much less, a part of it will be a non-confrontational, just a conference, a parallel conference and a screening of 1 billion lives.
Right.
And particularly importantly, a chance to really encourage the Indian vapors, which I've talked to, and they're in a similar situation to us probably a year ago or two, when we're all frightened and huddled in our bunkers, and that's what they're doing at the moment. And I would love to see if we could lift them up out of that and encourage them and activate them up into a place where they could be much more politically active. And I think, if they're meeting with advocates who are experienced from around the world, who've gone through these battles, and they feel that they're not alone in their place, that there's a whole world community that supports them. That's just going to be so wonderful for the Indian vapors to really lift their hearts and lift their spirits and make them feel that they can be part of this. And what an event, it will be the world's first international vape rally. Not just a local one, but international, for an international cause. So that's inspiring.
So I'll let you go. I've eaten up enough of your time, and I'm sure you got a lot to do today, but I do thank you so much for taking the time out.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
And there you have it. Part 2 of Dr. Danko's interview. Can't thank him enough for the time that he took to sit down with me and to discuss this situation down in Australia and globally for that matter. It was just a great, inspiring, and educational interview that came from a general practitioner. What more could you ask for? All right, despite the epic show that we've had to this point, I am going to throw in a permit to piss me off, a bit of a rant, something I wanted to get off my chest, something that's been bothering me for the last week or so. And I know that a lot of people aren't going to agree with me, but that doesn't matter. I'm still going to get this off my chest. And that is the fact that August 8th has come and gone. And since that time, I am seeing just this massive flood of F-bombs dropped at the FDA. Fuck the FDA. Fuck the FDA. And I get it. I totally get it. And to be honest with you, I feel the same way. It's ridiculous. It's uncalled for, and it's a big overreach of authority, definitely. However, if for any other reason our job at this point is still to educate and encourage current smokers and non-smokers on the true nature and the true meaning and benefits of vaping. Now, from my standpoint, if you were to bring a current smoker in and introduce them into the vaping community, and they start doing a little bit of research, and they just see this massive flood of negative energy towards the FDA, the governments, whatnot. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be upset and choked, but I just think that it's a point in time where we need to keep our wits about us and stand up and continue to fight. And this, to me, is just... it's almost appalling in a way that if you were to bring somebody new into the mix and they just see this wide open field of basically hooligans popping fingers, all these pictures of fuck the FDA, your fingers are up, and flipping the birds, dropping the F-bombs. It's just, I don't think it's called for. As upset as we all are, I don't think that it's something that's called for. And I just think that it's something that is going to tarnish the image for somebody new coming in. So something just to keep in mind. I mean, everybody to each their own, to carry on and do what you will. And I'm not one to judge, but I just think that if we can hold back as best we possibly can and continue to take our stance on education, to showing a tight-knit community, I think it's going to make us look that much better. And that's my rant for this week, and that's all it was. Thanks very much for taking the time to listen, everybody. Love you all. Thanks so much to Sam, the Vaping Bogan, for spending time with me and having a great interview. And also Dr. Attila Danko once again. Can't thank you guys enough to make this such a special, epic Fogcast. I think it's going to be a highlight for me, definitely, and much respect goes out to both of you, and much respect goes out to the entire vape community. I love you all. Stay healthy, stay happy, and keep on vaping.
The sun shines bright as it moves across my face. I feel the light, and everything is in its place. Oh, I woke up feeling great. Today was made for me, and life is good the way it should, the way